We're back with Christian Burridge, who's a Democrat running for Congress in Utah's 3rd Congressional District, and with Chris Cannon, who's the incumbent congressman, Republican, seeking his 6th term. Shauna, you're on the air. Your question, please.
I'd like to ask Mr. Burridge what he would do with the illegal aliens that are here and what he would do, what he would vote for their fence.
Okay, I'll ask you that.
Well, I think that the immigration issue starts with regulation of the businesses. We had a child labor problem in this country 100 years ago. The best way is that you provide disincentives for people to conduct illegal hiring practices. When you do that, it becomes a lot easier to enforce the border.
Okay, I'm a businessman. A guy comes, he says he's legal, I hire him, it turns out he's illegal. Do I get fined, or am I responsible, or if he shows me, say, a fake driver's license, do I get off?
The government, the technology is totally available for businesses to go in and to verify whether or not people are documented. I used to practice immigration law in my law practice, and I have people coming to me all the time that own business saying, hey, I want to be able to compete.
No excuses. The businesses, if you hire an illegal immigrant, you're subject to a fine.
If we have a verification process, then...
Do we have one now?
No. There's no way to
There's no way now.
There's no way to verify.
So now the businessman may honestly be fooled.
Many do, and many people have come to me.
Are you going to fine them, or are you going to let them off?
Well, once there's a notice period where people know that they can verify their employees, then there's a problem. It's a lot like child labor. There's no excuses.
First, there has to be verification.
Right.
Okay. Immigration.
Well, I think the question is fences. We voted for a fence. We funded a fence. The president is now starting to build a fence along the border.
Do you think that's a good idea?
Well, I think the fence is a good idea. You need to control the borders.
Is it going to work?
You need to have a comprehensive approach.
Work just as well as the wall in Berlin or something? Or I mean, it's just is it going to work?
They had guns at the wall in Berlin. I hope we don't do that.
Okay.
But what we need to know is who's coming to the country between checkpoints. And a wall is helpful, and you're going to have, you can't build a wall in the whole area just because it's difficult to do, but you can do an electronic wall. You can know who's coming across the border, and we're doing that. But I want America to grow. I want businesses to grow. I want the economy to be robust, and that means to some degree you need workers, not just people coming across the border from Mexico, but also high-tech workers. And so I favor a comprehensive approach that does everything, including getting a verification system, which is important. But let's let the government do the government's job and not constrain business.
Amnesty for the guys who are here?
No.
Well, okay, you're going to let them stay, or you're going to make them all back? Send them all back?
That at least they will have to leave to get a visa.
Okay, everyone has to leave.
To get a visa, I think everyone's going to end up leaving.
Amnesty for the guys who are here?
No, there's got to be a penalty. It's a civil violation to be in this country.
They pay $1,000 and they get to stay?
Whatever it is, but there needs to be a process where they get at the back of the line, they learn English, they learn civics.
Do they have to go home, or do they get to stay?
There's no way to enforce people to get people out of the country. It would clog our federal courts. Our Department of Homeland Security budget is too little. They have to get through that process. Now, if they don't get adjustment of status, then they've got to go.
Howard, you're on the air. Your question, please. Ellen, excuse me, I got the name wrong. Ellen, you're on the air. Your question, please.
Yes, my question for both of the candidates is actually related to the immigration issue, which I see as predominantly a scapegoating onto Hispanics, the very problem that we're not addressing in the United States, which is a meaningful minimum wage so that people can earn livable wages. And I'd like to hear each of the candidates address how we can overcome.
Ellen, give us a number. What ought it to be? $10 an hour?
Each city has very different.
Okay, so you change. You can't give us a number.
It may be a state issue, but the federal government needs to take the lead on this, and I'd like to hear how they're going to do that.
Okay, I'll ask him. How much? What should the minimum wage be?
I don't think there should be a minimum wage. In Utah, we're way above what was the minimum, what is still the minimum wage. I mean, you can't hire anybody in Utah for less than $7 or $8 an hour today.
Okay, what's the federal minimum wage now? 5 something?
It's 5 1/4.
Okay, 5 1/4.
What you want is an economy that's robust and is bidding up the cost of labor. That's what works.
Okay, so you'll vote to do away with the 5 1/4. You won't vote for $10 an hour.
Absolutely not 10. Certainly not 10.
Okay.
Now we did actually have a vote or an attempt to get an increase in the minimum wage here recently, but the minimum wage just forces people out of the marketplace instead of encouraging businesses to hire people.
I disagree. I think that the minimum wage should be increased to $7 an hour, the same proposal that was married to the estate tax. But what's important here is, and the difference between the congressman and I, is that the congressman takes substantial amounts of money for people to have cheap wages, $3 an hour through his guest worker program. I think that's absolutely wrong. And the problem with this is there's these big corporations that are making all this money, and they're passing on the social costs to everybody else. I think if you're going to have guest worker program, you got to have these corporations paying for the education, for the police, and for all the health care costs on our society.
Okay, and $7
We
an
don't
hour
disagree,
minimum
but
wage.
what is this $3 an hour thing?
Well, many of these guest workers are making less than minimum wage because there is no comprehensive reform right
Not
now.
in Utah.
All over the
My
country.
dairies are hiring guys at $8, $10, $12 an hour.
Well, there may be some that are paying
No, in
higher,
Utah,
but
it's higher.
there are many all over the country that are paying
Not
less
at
than
Janet.
minimum wage
Janet, you're on-
because it's not being regulated.
Janet, you're on the air. Your question, please.
Okay. Hello?
Hello, say it.
Yes, I'm going to rephrase my question. We voted English only, and what is our government going to start doing about enabling all these illegals to stay here with social programs and all these other programs?
Okay, I'll ask them. Okay, English only, are you for it?
No, I think English is the language of commerce. It's the language of the future. People are going to learn English. But
No law.
I think what she's suggesting, and which I agree with, is that we shouldn't be printing ballots, for instance, for people with different languages. It doesn't make sense. If you're going to be here and vote, you have a responsibility to know the language that is the
Are you
language
for
of the
kicking
nation.
immigrants off of Medicare? Are you for kicking them off of Medicaid?
If
Excuse
people
me.
are here illegally, then being on Medicare Medicaid is a state issue, but those are both crimes, and the law needs to be enforced. The problem with all these people underground is that you can't enforce it against everybody, as Christian said a moment ago. You'd be clogging the courts. So you have to clean it up, and then you go after the fraud, because there's an increasing amount of fraud.
Will you vote to kick their kids out of school? That's okay. You won't vote for it.
It's not a vote. That was already. It's been decided.
It's been decided in the courts, but you could vote, but if Congress voted to do it, it might happen. Maybe. Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
The businesses need to pay the social costs. I mean, they're the ones that are bringing these people in. They're sending coyotes down into Mexico, bringing people in this country. And the concern of this caller is that the taxpayers are paying for the social costs, but we have these big corporations that are making record profits off this cheap labor. Plus, it makes it more difficult for American workers to keep their wages up. So really, the businesses should be paying these social costs.